Even after 3 years of dedicating my entire channel to Animal Crossing, I'm still learning new things about the game. And the time has come once again where my list of useless oddities has grown large enough to warrant one more compilation video. So let's round out the series and talk about some irregularities in the original Animal Crossing. After donating some fish to the museum, you can visit the aquarium inside and look at your collection. Typically, these fish just swim around in their tanks randomly, but you might have noticed that the piranha will follow you around and poke the glass wherever you walk. This is, of course, a cheeky reference to piranhas always biting humans in pop culture, despite them being relatively harmless in real life. The piranha is the only fish in the entire aquarium that follows you and pokes the glass like this. That is, unless you have specific food items in your inventory. Funnily enough, if you come back into the aquarium with candy in your inventory, the koi and crucian carp will also start following you and peck at the glass as well. These specific fish are very popular pond fish that people often feed in real life, so I guess it makes sense they'd be attracted to food. However, in Animal Crossing, they're definitely hungry for sweets, as this only works specifically with candy. Other food items like fruits will not work. Notably, candy is a relatively rare item in the original Animal Crossing, and Tom Nook only sells it between October 16th and October 30th in preparation for Halloween. So I think it's pretty unlikely for a player to enter the aquarium with candy in their inventory, but this interaction is real and has been hiding here the entire time. Now, outside of the koi fish and carp being attracted to candy, and the piranha being attracted to you, there is one more fish programmed to follow you around and peck at the glass. If you come into the aquarium with any fruit or mushroom, the goldfish and pop-eyed goldfish will be attracted to you instead. Interestingly, this only works if you have fruit or mushrooms in your inventory without having candy. This is because the fish pecking behavior is programmed inside an if-else statement. You can see that having candy is the higher priority, and will cause the carp and koi fish to peck at you first, and the goldfish behavior will be skipped even if you have fruits or mushrooms. Next, I previously talked about how Animal Crossing towns were generated, and if you are lucky, you can even get a triple layer town with 2 sets of cliffs instead of 1. But they made one small oversight. Every so often, a train will pass by the station, and naturally, there's an accompanying sound effect for this train. However, if you happen to have a triple layer town, you'll notice the sound of this train is much quieter than in 2-layer towns. This occurs because, in triple layer towns, the train station is elevated much higher than usual, but the developers forgot to update the internal Y value of this train position. So, even on a triple layer town, the train's internal position remains as if it were in a 2-layer town. In practice, this only affects where the train's sound effects originate from. So, on triple layer towns, the sound of the train is actually coming from much further down inside the ground. Note that this audio quirk is exclusive to the North American version of the game. This bug was fixed starting with the Australian version, which released a little over a year after the North American one. Now, a programming quirk that was never addressed across all first-generation Animal Crossing games involves the behavior of butterflies. Outside of their normal flying behavior, butterflies were programmed to be able to land on flowers and pause, which, of course, makes sense. However, this almost never happens in normal gameplay. Instead, butterflies are racist and will only ever land specifically on white pansies. A butterfly will never land on any other flower type or color. Now, this isn't a programming bug per se, since the code works exactly as written, but I highly doubt this was their intention. Note that white pansies mark the start of all flower IDs in the game. So the developers often implement the entire range of flowers by starting with white pansies and ending with yellow tulips. So I think they intended to do the same thing here, but simply didn't range out the rest of the flowers. As a result, butterflies will only ever land on white pansies, And again, this is the case for every first generation Animal Crossing game and was seemingly never patched. Next, let's continue with more info about one of my favorite features in the game, the included NES emulator. For the unfamiliar, Animal Crossing includes several items shaped like an NES. When you interact with these items, the game boots up an internal emulator and loads actual NES ROMs that are stored on the disc. While Animal Crossing only includes a certain number of hand-picked ROMs, internal code from the emulator itself references a few unincluded games with hard-coded patches. For example, the emulator code specifically checks for the Japanese exclusive game Tetris 2 plus Bomb Bliss. If this game is loaded, the code applies a hacky scanline fix in order to render the game properly. Another example is the developer specifically searching for the substring by SAT when loading a ROM. Out of all NES games, this specific substring is found in a game called Quinty by Game Freak. This was notably the first game that Game Freak ever made, and you can tell that the art and gameplay would largely carry over to the Pokemon series. Anyways, Tetris 2 and Quinty do not appear anywhere in the game by default, but given these hard-coded patches in the code, it's clear that these ROMs were at least tested at one point. As a final note on Animal Crossing's NES emulation, I want to reiterate that this emulator will attempt to boot any standard NES or Famicom Disk System ROM, so long as it's structured properly and doesn't use any special mapper chips. This includes ROMs that were developed long after the console's lifecycle, such as the special NES version of Steins Gate, which was released in 2018 as an included bonus for buying Steins Gate Elite on the Switch. You can normally only play this little side game on the Switch, but under the hood, the game is actually a fully structured NES ROM that's just being emulated. As such, you can insert the ROM into Animal Crossing and play it on its emulator. So we're playing a game from 2018 inside of a game that was released 17 years prior, all emulating a system that came out in 1985. Pretty cool. Next, among the features that are exclusive to the Japanese E+ version are special mini-games that can be downloaded to your Game Boy via a link cable. Every day you can go to the Wishing Well and download one of 3 minigames to your GBA, which include detailed sprites of all the villagers. I've already talked about these minigames in a previous video, so I won't touch on them here, but the important part is that specific minigames can only be downloaded on certain days. However, on Sunday, you seemingly get a random game selected out of the 3. But that's not exactly accurate. Cuyler recently discovered that the process for selecting a Sunday minigame is not random at all. Instead, specifically on Sundays, the game captures your current date and calculates how many weeks it has been since January 1st, 2003. It then takes modulus 3 of that number, meaning it divides the total number of weeks by 3 and looks at the remainder to determine what game to download. This will always result in a value from 0 to 2, with red light green light being mapped to 0, rock paper scissors being mapped to 1, and dodgeball being mapped to 2. So, for example, if we're playing on Sunday, August 16th, 2026, it has now been 1,232 weeks since January 1st, 2003. So the game divides 1,232 by 3, giving us 410, remainder 2. Looking solely at the remainder, this makes dodgeball our downloaded minigame. And yes, they do account for leap years when doing this calculation. This formula notably distributes the minigames so that you can never get the same game 2 Sundays in a row. Every Sunday is always a different game in a cyclical order. However, since a year can only ever contain 52 or 53 Sundays, you'll always end up with a year where one game is more favored than another. For example, in 2026, red light green light will be chosen 18 times compared to the 17 times of dodgeball and rock paper scissors. Also, just like the other first generation games, the E+ version will stop tracking time after 2030, and attempting to go beyond that year will just reset you back to 2030 after you save. In 2030, dodgeball ends up being the game that is more likely to show up, so assuming you don't time travel back to a different year, you will be eternally stuck with dodgeball as the minigame that is slightly more likely to show up. Finally, I'd like to correct myself on a previous oddity that I got wrong in my very first video on this series. In that video, I talk about the morning aerobics event, which takes place every day from July 25th to August 31st from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. This event is mostly harmless fun, but in order to obtain the Aerobics radio item, you must attend this event 14 times within a single year. Normally, this isn't too hard, since the event runs for 38 consecutive days, and you only need to attend 14 times. However, morning aerobics are programmed to be cancelled entirely if it happens to be raining that day. From July 25th to August 31st, there's a 10% chance of rain every day except on August 12th, which is always hard-coded to be clear due to the evening meteor shower. Since you have one guaranteed clear weather day, you need to attend 13 more times out of the 37 other days in order to obtain the aerobics radio. But there's an extremely unlikely chance that it will rain on enough days and cancel enough events to make it impossible to attend 13 more times. I previously reported the odds of this happening as 1 in 38 billion, but this was inaccurately calculated assuming the event ran for 30 days instead of 38. So, this is the new binomial distribution formula, and this gives us a 1 in 18 quadrillion chance of it raining enough days to make it impossible to obtain the aerobics radio. To exaggerate my point further, that's a 0.0000000000000000055% chance. However, due to some new glitch discoveries, this unlucky chance only applies to the Australian and European versions. In North America, we get to abuse an unpatched glitch that lets the morning aerobics event actually occur during the rain, meaning that we can guarantee the attendance reward. At the start of a new day, and during every map reload, the developers check the current weather, and if it is raining, the morning aerobics event will be skipped. But the glaring issue with this implementation is when this code runs, and this is what we can abuse. When it rains in Animal Crossing, it will last all day, but the developers forgot that we can very easily alter the weather state by simply connecting our Game Boy Advance and visiting the island. Since the island is programmed to always be sunny, the rain will clear while we're on Captain's boat. From here, we just enter the island cabana, which triggers a map reload. Upon reload, the game once again checks the current weather, and since we're on the island, it sees that it's not raining, and thus, the morning aerobics event starts on the mainland. From here, we can go back outside, have Captain take us back to the mainland, and the morning aerobics event will occur in full rain, giving us proper attendance for that day. Of course, entering and exiting a building will trigger another map reload, and since it is raining again, the event will despawn entirely. So make sure to go attend the event right after you get off Captain's boat. Another separate issue with this code is that it does not work when the player plays past midnight and leaves the console running until 6 AM. Let's take a scenario where a player loads into town at 11:59 PM and it's a clear day. At 12 AM midnight, it's a brand new day, so the event code runs and captures the current weather state. The game sees that the weather is clear, so at this point, the event is not cancelled and is scheduled to take place at 6 AM. Immediately after this, the 10% rain chance is rolled for the day, and if it hits, it will start raining and update the weather. But since the event code already ran and captured the weather as clear, the morning aerobics event will be incorrectly scheduled to occur during rainy weather later that day. Note that you must sit outside and let the clock roll over to 12 AM for this to occur. You also have to prevent the map from reloading since that will rerun the code. In other words, in order to trigger the morning aerobics cutscene during the rain, you cannot save and quit and you cannot enter any buildings for 6 additional hours. You must leave the console running and you must be outside from 12 AM to 6 AM for this to occur. If done successfully, the train station will announce the start of morning aerobics in the middle of the rain. But upon visiting the wishing well, you'll notice things aren't exactly normal. All the villagers are here, but they remain stationary and don't do any aerobics. Also, both Copper and Tortimer are missing entirely, and the radio that plays the aerobics theme is also absent. You can talk to the villagers, who will say their usual aerobics dialogue, but the event is not actually active. The villagers here will just keep staring off into space until the map reloads, so you can actually sit here and hold them hostage for days on end. Now, if you've been cleverly following along, you might have noticed that this glitch will also work in reverse as well. That is, if it's already raining and you let the clock roll over to 12 AM, the game will capture the weather as rain and cancel the morning aerobics at 6. Even if it stops raining immediately after, the event was already cancelled, so if you stay outside until 6 AM, morning aerobics will never trigger even though it's a clear day. Note that in the Australian and European versions, the developers changed the code to pull the weather state from early updated save data rather than just capturing the live rendered weather at incorrect intervals. This effectively patches this bug in both of those versions, so if you're European or Australian, you can technically still get hit with a 1 in 18 quadrillion chance to miss out on the Aerobics radio. That's going to do it for me. You hear his name all the time, but as always, I want to give a big thank you to my friend Cuyler, who has been generously sharing all of his decompilation findings to me over several years. Cuyler's collaboration with me is truly the backbone of this channel, so I encourage you to check out his work, and if you have the means, consider supporting him on Ko-fi or Patreon. Of course, I'd also like to thank my own community of patrons for supporting me as well. I'd like to extend a heartfelt shout out to my top supporters, Lunascape, Mithra, Dylan Trudeau, Silly Marina, Japan Eat, Tammy's Head, Villager, Terumi, Pidge01, Kai D, ComfyBoy404, Arbor Days, Bobby Nard, Goose Fart, HPR, Cray, Dimitri, Highly in Descent, Lock and Key 24, Martin the Level 10 Wizard V2, Wesley Witz, Retro Reversing, Howling Coder, Jesse RNDM, Netix, Kydrin, insert clever username here, Sned6772, Venus, J Horsefall, Pizza Dog DS, Yaldabouth, May I, and The Headless Artist 12. Truly, thank you all so much for the support over the last 3 years. I hope you all continue to enjoy the channel and look forward to future uploads. Until next time.